Many view fashion as a vapid industry, a trivial industry, but if you look at the impact that fashion has had on human history and the global economy, you'll see nothing but power. Fashion is a huge industry, employing 1 in 6 people on the globe. And it's not just because there are 7.5 billion of us and we all need to wear something. It's more than that. We buy clothes at a rate that's quicker than what we need to. We get caught up in fashion. And fashion has this personal connection to people because it's a means of communication. It's a way to express your self-identity. And fashion has had its impact on the environment. As an industry, we emit more greenhouse gases than international aviation and maritime shipping combined. Fashion has been used as an economic tool for centuries. Louis XIV and his Privy Council created the notion of seasonality in fashion, and it had 2 effects. First of all, Louis gained power because the nobility were in debt, paying for all the fashion. And second of all, it stimulated the economy of France by providing work for its artisans. And in London, years later, something really important happened. At the end of the 17th century, there was an emergence of groups of boutiques that were different. For the first time, the interior design of a boutique became important just as the clothes inside were. Interior design suggested a context of luxury, of escapism, wealth, social status, and it became very popular as a social gathering place. These boutiques were widely copied, and the popularity led to an increase in demand for fabric. Now, what many people forget is that many of the most game-changing innovations of the first industrial revolution were to feed an increased demand for fashion. The spinning jenny, the cotton gin, the sewing machine, and even the idea of the factory system where you're combining power with machinery and a semi-skilled labor force. These were all ideas driven by the increased demand for fashion. And now, all these years later, we have an opportunity for fashion to again be a platform for new ideas, new technologies, new materials, and new ways of thinking. Fashion can be a role model for positive change. We can shift the change that's already started in our industry to be something more positive and something more sustainable. Fashion can change the world in a positive way. There are 3 key paths which will be important to achieve sustainability within fashion. Number 1, avoid impact through education, dialogue, and new options. Number 2, reducing impact by choosing better materials and simpler processes of manufacturing. And number 3, cradle-to-cradle thinking, where we consider the full lifespan of a product and its afterlife when we design. So first of all, how do we avoid impact? Well, if we avoid producing a physical object, we will eliminate the impact that it has on the environment. And we can do this through education and awareness by teaching consumers to buy better, but buy less. If you think about the price of a shirt at Zara at H&M, and how many steps go into making that complex product, it doesn't make sense. And the costs that are excluded are the social costs and the environmental costs, to the point where workers aren't paid a living wage and chemicals are not disposed of properly and resources are not harvested responsibly. on the other side, we can give customers new options, new ways to participate in the fashion economy that are less harmful to the environment. I've seen 3 really good examples of this. The first is a digital collection put out by a Scandinavian sportswear company. And essentially, you send them a photo, you pick an outfit from their website, they virtually tailor it onto your photo, send it back to you, and you can post it on social media. What a great idea, because it allows for creativity, it allows for self-expression, but there's no waste, there's no shipping, and there are no resources involved. A second idea, which redefines the notion of what a product is Rent the Runway. And this is fashion's answer to the shared economy. So Rent the Runway is a designer boutique online and in store where customers can choose designer, better made products at a better price, but instead of buying them, they're renting them. So not only does it give customers the exposure to a better made product at a greater value, but it adds value to the better made product itself because it can be used multiple times, up to 20 times. The last example is the Real Real, and this isn't a new concept because it's essentially a designer vintage boutique, but the scale is new. It's nationwide, and customers can buy and sell. The selection is huge because it is nationwide, and it again allows better value to come from a better made product. And because there's more than one owner, more value in the better made product. The second task, reducing impact, can be done through choosing better raw materials and simplifying methods of production. I think by now we've all heard that natural biodegradable fibers are inherently better than petroleum-based synthetics. But there is a new category coming onto the market in a few years, which is really exciting, and it's game-changing because it blends the idea of a natural and a synthetic into a bio-based synthetic. So these are lab-created materials that are biodegradable because they're made of biological material. Biofabrication is a great example of this, where DNA-infused bacteria and yeast create animal and plant tissue. Modern Meadow has created a replacement for leather made of collagen. And collagen is essentially what our skin is made of. So really, this is actually leather, but it doesn't take raising a cow for 18 months and killing the cow to make the product. You can make it in a week. In a similar process, Bolt Threads has isolated the DNA from spider silk and sequenced it and added it to yeast, which is fed sugar to produce spider silk. And there's research being done now in Aalto University in Finland to create cellulose from bacteria in a similar process. The coolest thing about these new materials is the endless spectrum of possibilities, because you can harness the full spectrum of nature's natural solutions. You have a lot to choose from, and it will lead to products that finally are sustainable, but they're not a compromise. They'll actually be better. And if in a few years, if they're successful, they'll even be cheaper. So there won't be the designer resistance that we've seen in the past. These lab-created materials are also prime candidates for a simpler method of production called additive process. A good example of additive manufacturing, which already exists, is fully fashioned knitwear. So with fully fashioned knitwear, you're not cutting away pattern pieces from a bolt of fabric. You are creating the pattern pieces from the yarn up. It's additive. Biofabrication can be additive as well, because if you pour, for example, this lab-created leather into a mold, you can have an entire purse without sewing. So you eliminate 2 steps. And an additive process that eliminates even more steps and has even more potential once we start using bio-based materials for it is 3D printing. And 3D printing eliminates so many steps, so much shipping, and so much time that it will enable us to offer stock-free retail. And think about all the savings of waste and cost that would be associated if we can get rid of excess stock. Our third path towards sustainability is cradle-to-cradle thinking. And this is where we consider the full lifespan and afterlife of our products while we design them. So the goal here is to eliminate garbage and reduce the need for virgin raw materials. And we can do this by creating fully biodegradable products, including all the components, or we can create recycle-ready products where the components and trims are easy to remove, or they can be recycled in the same process in one shot. Now, up until now, we haven't seen much of an advance in textile recycling, although in the next few years, we will see a lot more large-scale operations which are able to produce recycled cotton, cellulose, polycotton, polyester, nylon, and any mix of those. And I was so captivated by the idea of using waste as our raw material that I got in touch with one of the manufacturers, and I visited them in Finland. So Intscher is a cellulose-based, recycled, biodegradable fiber. And the raw material it uses is 100% clothing waste. You can also add newspaper and cardboard. Anything with cellulose in it can be used. Now, what really mystified me about this process is the level of customization that's possible simply by selecting what you recycle and sorting it differently. So, for example, blue jeans recycle differently than old newspapers, and they achieve different properties in the finished fabric. Now, when I asked the people at Aalto University about this, they said, oh, don't worry, we're going to standardize everything. And I almost jumped out of my seat. And I said, no, please don't do that. You're eliminating the best thing about your product. Because there are so many cellulose-based fibers that all go after general desirable qualities like drapiness and luster and softness. But I don't need general qualities. As a designer, I need specificity. I need lots of unique, different materials to choose from so I can create something that has all different properties. And how would you know that without talking to a designer? Which led me to think maybe these conversations need to happen more often at an early stage in the development process. Perhaps what we need to achieve sustainability is more vertical thinking. So companies at different levels of the supply chain can talk to each other and create a support network where you can advise each other, hone products, fine-tune them, talk to marketing people, and really get the product right for the market, but also prepare the market for the product. Timing is important for this movement because of the effect that fashion has had on the environment, and speed will be a very big issue. So the sooner we can make things succeed, the better. Again, fashion can be a role model if we change what we're doing and spin it into something more positive. And what is really exciting about this period of time that we have right now, and just something that is a one-in-the-century opportunity, is On the one hand, you have this powerful movement of the environmental movement, which is really at the forefront of our culture right now, especially with the youth culture. And at the same time, you have all of these amazing new materials coming onto the market which actually address exactly the things that the issues of the movement. So these two things are matching and they're happening at the same time, which is a remarkable opportunity for positive change to happen. And we should use this. This movement of environmentalism could become more than that. It could become a permanent shift in how we make things in the world. And it could be part of our new sustainable reality. Thank you.